don't know about how the governments are set up, but there are 3 separate governments in town. But we can behave in a more collaborative way to save money through combining these services, and we could, through different accounting mechanisms, we could parse up how each government shares in that cost. So I think that's an opportunity from a budget standpoint. I think that also the last few years we have spent a little too much time looking for pencils and paper clips to count and to cut. I think there are bigger fish to fry. We're looking at $500 here, $1,000 here. Yeah, it all adds up. But where are the opportunities? Like, for example, several years ago, the council here put together, all 5 members put their heads together and decided to go to the airport and say, we want a bigger slice of the pie. We're impacted by the noise, by the pollution, by sharing in this economic engine for southern New Hampshire. We need to be compensated as a community. And we carved out a deal that yielded the town in revenues of over $20 million. Now, that's a lot of pencils, a lot of paper clips. There are those big fish that we can go after. The next greatest thing, I think, is the industrial development. I don't think we're spending nearly enough time or money marketing that to both local and national companies to come to our community, as well as international companies. And we need to reach broader, we need to think bigger, and we need to spend that time and that investment that will yield, again, several $million in property tax relief for the average homeowner.
Thank you, Tom. Bill, your question, and let's direct first to Mark, okay?
Good morning. In terms of your positions or potential positions on the Budget Committee, how would you go about, or how would you want to see going about as a committee and as an individual member of the committee, working with the individual departments, working with the department heads in terms of analyzing their budgets, in terms of going in depth to find cost savings to help prevent the need for personnel reductions?
Thanks, Bill, for your question. I think it's a 2-part answer. One, I will express my personal confidence in the caliber and the expertise of our department heads, and town staff. I think they're very capable. I think it's incumbent as an individual member and as a collective body, as a budget committee, to ask the what-if questions or the why-not questions. And so rather than, to echo Tom's comment, rather than nickel and dime around pencils and office supplies, I think we need to look at possible restructuring of our organization, hence the manpower plan. If someone retires or resigns, it's not an automatic rehire. What can we do with restructuring staff, with cross-training, with shared responsibilities, as Tom suggested, between library, school, or town, recognizing and respecting the inherent differences governmental-wise. I think that the second part of that is, having served on the council for 9 years, I've had the privilege to be involved as a liaison member to a wide variety of boards and committees. And in that, when it's done properly and when it's done proactively, you come to appreciate not only fellow community members and volunteers, but the professional staff that are supporting those efforts and vice versa. So I believe that as an individual member, I'll be able to contribute, having had that working knowledge for the past 9 years on the council.
Thank you. And Deb?
Firstly, from a committee standpoint, I think the individuals that are currently here are very qualified. They come from a very diversified background. And you also have to remember, this community prides itself on volunteers. These are people that have chosen to get involved, have chosen to get the necessary facts, look at the ramifications of those decision-making that they all make. As individuals, every single one of these members, including myself, have served as liaison, sorry, I'm not French, and have gone out there to see what is actually going on. I think that's pivotal. On the leadership program, I was astounded as to how much hard work goes into all these decisions, and they really do look at the facts. I'd like to see more participation from the community to come to these meetings, and while they may not understand some of the jargon and the lingo, they will in time. Anyone would be more than happy to explain something to them. I'd like to see more activity from the employees that these decisions are being made on. I can tell you I've served in many companies that employee surveys and feedback are extremely important. They know where the waste is, and they will be more than happy to tell you because they want to be instrumental in the change of that organization being successful. So getting some feedback from these different organizations that headcount is imperative in reevaluating right now. Also, I think looking at the core personnel in these organizations that we have to evaluate and working from the core outward. What is absolutely the essential core employees that are necessary? Companies are doing it every day. And working out from that. And I also do believe in the cross-training and the cross-utilization of these employees where it is necessary. And getting rid of what I call the fluff and stuff. I think that's what taxpayers, you know, are up in arms about. I'm a taxpayer. I can tell you that's what hits my gut. And that's where I would start. And I think those are key components of restructuring.
Thank you. And Tom?
Good question. This kind of plays into something that I've recently been talking about with the council and with my fellow budget committee members of the current budget committee that I serve on, and that is recommending to the council, which is in our form of government, is the policy-making body. And it kind of is similar to a large corporation where you have a board of directors and the town manager is kind of like the CEO. The board of directors creates policy and the CEO executes. In our form of government, what I've been recommending, and has not been the appetite to do this yet, and it's a relatively new idea, but I would recommend the new council, once elected, begin the process of directing the CEO or the town manager to review the policies that have been put in place by the policy-making body over the past dozen or so years, of which I was part of at one time, and look at what costs are being driven by those policies, and then put that out on the table for the public to debate, saying we are now going to review these 10 policies, for example, these top 10 policies that are driving costs, driving taxes, and we're going to debate them, whether or not we can do without or maybe do with a slightly lower or maybe even a much lower level of service around the policies that have been put in place. I think it's too easy for the policymakers to turn to the town manager and say, cut $1 million or cut $100,000 out of this without actually taking the policy off the table. By definition, it becomes an unfunded mandate. Now, if that comes from the state, you can bet your life the council or the school board, depending on which government hits, would scream like stuck pigs, saying you can't give us unfunded mandates. It's against the law, in fact. Well, that's in fact what we're doing to our own town staff, our department heads, and our town manager by saying we're going to withdraw the funding, but we want you to continue to perform all the services that we've become accustomed to in our way of life here in Londonderry. I think it's time that we put those on the table, we get public input on those specific services, and then we look at rolling those back. That, you know, depending on does the public really have the stomach to roll it back, those services and the associated costs and the associated taxes that they're all connected.
Right. Thanks, Tom. Don?
Yes, an excellent question, Bill.
from my experiences